Like, that would be a very weak ending, a very underwhelming ending, wouldn't it? If that was the whole end of the Sami and Roman arc. It's like, oh yeah, he got cheated out of a win, but hey, they played his music and the crowd said ole, ole for him. And his old Canadian friend saved him. Like, is that how you're going to end it with him and Roman? More or less built up Sami as the biggest babyface in the company. But then it's like, oh, well, Cody won the Rumble, though, so he has to, you know what I mean? Like, it's like two trains are, like, about to merge onto the same track. And right now, the track is Sami's. But now Cody has to also merge onto the track. Chest up, shoulders back. Welcome to Revival Wrestling, everybody, where I have better wrestling takes than you, and you know it. In this video, we're going to talk about the ending to Elimination Chamber 2023, Reigns versus Sami, and I have a lot of questions about how they ended it. Now, I understand the long-term storytelling aspect, even though, I mean, this whole thing, the bloodline has to be wrapping up soon, right? I mean, I don't know how much longer you could drag this out for. It's been the best feud and the best story this company's done in a long time, but all good things must come to an end. But my biggest question mark now is, how does Cody Rhodes fit into this? This is what I expected to happen. I'm sure a lot of you guys are similar. I expected Roman to win, as he did and should have. Anybody that thinks Sami was going to win was just wishful thinking. I think they made him look too strong there. All right, now I understand it's the hometown and, you know, the crowd's behind him. It's like a big magical moment, everything. But what all did he take? I mean, he took, I think, multiple spears. He took the Superman punch over and over, which that goes into a whole nother subject too in modern wrestling. Finishers don't mean anything anymore. I think that needs to be fixed. I mean, some of these guys, man, their whole moveset, it's just a few things, then just leading up to the finisher, and then it's just kick out of the finisher, oh, hit the finisher again, do this, do that, right? I mean, I was invested into it. The crowd was obviously very invested. A lot of near falls. Roman is a master at, like, the 2.9 kick out at this point. But all that aside, just because it's a great wrestling match between two people, I don't know if it was the best thing for the story. So, what it seems like they're doing, I'd be very surprised if anything else happened, but it looks like they're going to be doing Roman and Cody at Mania, and then they're going to be doing KO and Sami versus the Usos. That gives us the question, why would Sami look so good against Roman? Not only that, my other issue with this is the fact that the post-match beatdown was not that much. I mean, Jey Uso came in and, you know, hit Sami a little bit. Roman hit him with the chair a few times and threw it out of the ring. I was expecting Cody to come make the save. Like, to me, that is the most perfect way you could keep Sami where he was, loved by the crowd, and then really, because Cody's been doing great promos, he's winning people over, but him coming and saving Sami would have been, I think, just the pinnacle of what this could have been. So how I envisioned this going was Roman winning easier than he did. Okay, like Sami got, which Roman's done this a lot in his matches, right? You know, the ref gets knocked out, then he gets like a 7 count, but there's no ref in the ring, right? I don't think Sami should have done that. Remember, 1 year ago at this point, he was losing to Johnny Knoxville and the Jackass crew with giant mouse traps and a whole circus full of gimmicks, right? And again, credit to Sami for getting out of that and making much better of a situation. But even so, man, this context matters. Because Sami is still, he's a mid-card guy at the end of the day. That's all he's going to be. He does not have the physique, all this other stuff to do it. No matter how good of a wrestler he is, he just does not have the aura of a main event guy. And that's fine. That's why he came into the bloodline as just like, I don't remember how exactly he did, but he just kind of waltzed in and became the sidekick guy. That basically was the role. But how I would have done this myself, I know it's easy to armchair book and all this stuff when you're not actually in the process, of course, but I expected to see Sami get destroyed. Whenever I watched the Rumble, whenever he turned on Roman, I thought then would have been a good time to have him blade, right? You know, draw some blood, really make it dramatic, all this stuff, which if you wanted to save it until Elimination Chamber in front of his home crowd and his wife and all that stuff, that's fine. I get that too. But it's funny because AEW uses blood in every single match, almost. WWE now, unless somebody just actually gets cut open, they don't seem to be blading much anymore. And I get that TV, PG, and all this stuff, but would there be a better time to have Sami blade than after this match, right? Like, Roman loses his mind, Jay comes in, and they just pummel the living crap out of him, hit him with the chair, and then he gets up and he's just gushing blood. I mean, the visual would have been so good. You could cut to his wife, and she's like, oh my goodness, right? All this stuff. But no. I mean, it was just a very typical post-match bloodline angle. Jimmy comes in, beats him up, and then Jay comes in, which, again, too, right? I mean, Jay's also a cornerstone of this story. He comes in and stands in the way, and Roman hands him the chair, and he's, he does the little tease, he's gonna hit Roman in the back, and he doesn't. And then Sami accidentally, even though, the timing, it's kind of obvious what was gonna happen, he accidentally spears Jay, which that's what the out is gonna be, as far as I can tell. That's how they're gonna build into KO and Sami versus the Usos. I guess Jay is going to, again, even though he could watch a replay of the match and see that Sami didn't intend to spear him, or at least didn't look like he was. But that's, wrestling. Wrestlers don't have access to replay or tapes or anything like that. Everything just happens as it happens in wrestling world. KO coming to make the save is my biggest problem. Because, okay, if you want to set up KO and Sami versus the Usos, that's fine. But we're at the point now where Sami got so close to winning, he took so many bumps, he kept kicking out over and over, the crowd was so behind him, all of this stuff, right? I mean, that was his night, as it should be. But now we have to go back to Cody. And again, Cody can cut the best promos in the business, he can do all this stuff, but all the crowd wants now is Sami to get retribution. And he deserves it because he technically beat Reigns. He had him down for the count. He had numerous very, very near falls, and then he technically won on that, I forget the move, the haluva kick, or he hits Roman with something, but the ref was out. And of course, 2 refs have to get taken out. The whole officiating thing bothers me, how ragdoll the refs are in a lot of cases, but anyway, I just don't see how Cody's given any favors with how this turned out. Unless they decide to do a switch or an audible at the last moment, Cody is still going to win at the Rumble. He's going to fulfill, the family destiny or finish the story, whatever taglines they're going to use. Is this going to affect how the crowd cheers for him? I don't think the crowd's going to turn on Cody at this point. I think that's a little bit far-fetched. But how are you going to have your next top guy, the guy who came back at Mania last year, the injury, all this stuff, right? The whole story makes very good sense. But does the crowd even care at this point? Right, because it's obvious that he's going to be the one to beat Roman, or at least you really think it would, unless something else happens, unless there's like a swerve aspect to it. You just took your next top-level babyface, and I'm not going to say they buried Cody, obviously, because that's too egregious of a term to use in this instance. If you had him just come out and save Sami, you could have even had KO come out before that, and then KO could have, because KO just stunnered a few guys, put Jay through the table. He kind of just cleaned up shop and left. And then they played Sami's music and he got his moment. But, that's not... You can't end the entire thing that way. That would be a very weak ending, a very underwhelming ending, wouldn't it? If that was the whole end of the Sami and Roman arc. It's like, oh yeah, he got cheated out of a win, but hey, they played his music and the crowd said ole, ole for him. And his old Canadian friend saved him. Is that how you're going to end it with him and Roman? If you ask me, that is not a suitable ending for the magnitude of this story, but I don't know. So maybe they're going to do some stuff in the coming weeks where it'll be, KO and Sami and Cody versus the Bloodline, maybe on a big SmackDown main event or something, or on Raw at some point. Raw could really use that because Raw is very hard to watch. It's 3 hours of very poorly acted drama in a lot of cases. But I've seen other people mention this too. The ending felt it was like blue balls in a way. It was just too lackluster. I was just like, okay, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Cody's finally going to come out. And it just deflated the balloon, right? It doesn't work to me. And I try to be patient with this, right? Because the story's been very good to this point. I don't want to just say, oh, they ruined the entire thing, obviously. This is the issue you run into whenever, right? I mean, you've more or less built up Sami as the biggest babyface in the company. But then it's like, oh, well, Cody won the Rumble, though, so he has to, you know what I mean? It's like 2 trains are about to merge onto the same track. And right now the track is Sami's. But now Cody has to also merge onto the track. Do you see what I mean? So, like I said, I would very much assume that we're going to get KO and Sami versus the Usos at Mania, which, again, will be a good match in its own right. But is that the match that Sami needs to be in right now? I don't No, it seems too low of a level for this point. I mean, we have, what, a month and a half roughly until WrestleMania, maybe a little bit less. So they have time to kind of pull some strings. I don't know, man. It would have made perfect sense, in my opinion, if KO came out to save Sami, and he did his best, but they still couldn't master him. Because what do they have? Heyman hit him in the back. And they turned it into like a comedy sketch at the end. Right? I mean, just the magnitude of the moment, and then Paul Heyman's in there fight, throwing fisticuffs with KO. It didn't work, in my opinion, nearly as well as it could have. I don't know if Cody wasn't in Canada. I mean, Solo wasn't there either. I don't know if there's like travel issues with one or both of those guys or what exactly the case is, but I don't think you could have got Cody over in a better way than having him come save Sami alone or even Sami and KO. I think that would have made complete perfect sense. Because mind you, too, whenever Jay got speared by Sami, mind you, Sami Zayn is the one that speared him, and then he's just gone for the rest of the segment. You're telling me a spear from Sami Zayn, who's been wrestling for 30 minutes, that takes Jey Uso out, who came in fresh. I guess he came out from under the ringer in the crowd, and then he's just gone. But that pop for Cody would have been huge. If Sami's sitting there, busted open, and KO is sitting there, he's just trying to crawl over to help his friend, and then Big Brother Cody comes down. I mean, the pop would have been enormous. I think people in the crowd were expecting it too. Again, you could tell just based on the crowd reactions. Now, they were extremely drunk, and they were going to cheer for anything. Hometown boy and all that. But you could even tell from the crowd at the ending, they were like, oh, that's it. This is not doing Cody any favors. And the company's never done him a lot of favors historically. In most instances, this is going to, if you ask me, take away from his moment at Mania if and when he beats Roman. Maybe Sami, you'll help him in some regard. I'm sure, every Reigns match now, the bloodline gets involved at the end after the ref. Again, the formula's getting kind of tired, but the bloodline gets involved once the ref is knocked out, all this stuff, right? So maybe Sami can help Cody win the title, but even then, is that going to help? That Cody couldn't do it himself. You see what I mean? So I don't think this is going to go as well for Cody as a lot of people seem to think. I don't think it's going to totally bury him, as I said, but I think you've kind of booked him into a corner at this point. And everybody expects him to win at Mania, so if he wins at Mania, it's like, okay, he got it, Sami didn't, this is our new golden boy, right? And if he doesn't win, unless The Rock somehow comes back, because that could open a whole other set of doors, which I really wish he would have been at the Royal Rumble. I guess he couldn't with his movie stuff, but that's a whole other point. Anyway, though, Cody's got an uphill battle now at this point, much more so than it needed to be. I think he can overcome it because he's got the promo skills and the wrestling skills, but I'd be kind of upset if I was him, so let me know what you guys think.